All right, we are technically live. Just sit here for a second and smile and derp.
Can we see who shows up or if anybody starts watching?
Oh, here we go. So I see us on here. I'm going to edit audience now. And if you want to go ahead and I'll even edit the post and tag you in it so that it shows up, Mike Goldberg. And then I'll also tag you down here. And that way your friends can see that we are live.
Sweet.
Yeah. Gotta love, like, I hate the way I look when it freezes on my face at first because I'm always like making derp face trying to figure something out. Oh, I love it. It even shows closed captionings.
No way.
Yeah.
Where? On the
On the Facebook Live.
there.
Yeah, I just tagged you in the post as well as in the caption.
Oh, good. Are we going to save a transcript of this?
Well, in the audio recording, once the
Right.
editor is done, we put it through Otter, and then it
Right.
auto transcribes it.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to click out of Facebook since it obviously is working.
Yep.
All right. Well, Mike Goldberg, welcome back to the show. I think this is your third episode now.
I think so.
Yeah, and I love the episodes when we have you on because we always seem to talk about stuff that is prevalent in, I think, all of our lives, which is that victim mindset kind of situation. I didn't have a plan for what we're talking about today, but I think you would actually be a great person to talk about what is going on presently on BitClout, even though it's something that happens outside of BitClout. And it does have to do with your expertise,
Okay.
especially since we're of different genders.
All right.
So I don't know if you know, because it doesn't really relate to you, but on BitClout, there has been formed a lot of new creator funds or funding or investments or projects that are women-only, female creator-only related.
Okay.
Have you seen any of those?
Yeah, actually, I have. And I think a few of the people I know are involved in some.
Yeah, so honestly, I am involved and I know, I think almost every single one of the people that are either directly involved or their funding is being used or they're just supporting it. And I personally like every single one of the people that are involved. I think they're all great males, they're great guys that are trying to do the right thing. And they heard that there was a problem and they wanted to help solve it. So that's what I'm seeing so far. But the problem in that is, and this is where the victim mindset comes in, I have been guilty of it too, where on BitClout, when I was trying to sell NFTs, I was seeing a lot of the males and other people selling for big money. And it was easy for me to automatically assume that it's because they're a man and I'm a woman that I'm not getting the respect or the sales that I feel I deserve. And it wasn't until Clay Oglesby actually talked to me about it, and he said, he was intelligent with what he said, and what he said made perfect sense. And he's like, it has nothing to do with the gender. It has to do with marketing. It has to do with hustling, the connections that are formed and already formed that have been built up that are making these sales and driving these sales. And it struck me, along with our conversations we've had tons of times, that he's correct. I need to get out of the mindset that it's someone else's fault or the fault of my gender and I have no control over it, and try to watch what the top NFT sellers are doing, try to get involved as much as possible, and start taking control and empowering myself instead of having that victim mindset. So that was a month, or I think that was right when NFT started. So I've had that mindset, but what I've seen happen now that these female creator funds or these investor funds are doing is really segregating and separating the community as a whole. As far as now you've got now you've got a vessel for females to stay in that victim mindset and believe that it does have something to do with our gender. And then you also have the outsiders who are seeing it as, well, now these girls are being supported by these funds, so we don't need to support them, and they are separated and they are different and they are just a vagina instead of like a valuable creator. And me being raised by a lesbian who is a feminist, who was part of the feminist movement, sees it as a hindrance because now I am being grouped into this group instead of what I've worked so hard to do, which is be an individual. So I kind of wanted to talk about that whole kind of situation, and like maybe we can give some insight and expand the thought process a little bit and see where each individual can maybe feel empowered after our conversation.
Wow, that's quite a rabbit hole, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's a real rabbit hole, and I think, yeah, in society in itself, outside of BitClout, there is that problem too, and I see it, especially with females, where they want to be paid equally, they want to be treated equally, but then they also seem to want to be coddled at the same time. And it's so frustrating because it's like, well, pick one.
So, I'm going to speak in generalities because I have not really been active on BitClout for the past month, as a lot of people haven't. So I'm not very aware of what is going on there, and forgive me for that.
No, that's fine. I think actually speaking in more general terms will allow the entire audience and the non-BitClout users to get something valuable out of this conversation.
So what it looked like to me in the beginning was an observation that there were fewer women on within BitClout and the tech community as a whole. And so there was a desire to bring more women into the fold, and so that we can have, you know, an equal space where everyone was welcome, and it was encouraged that this is a space for women artists. This is a space for everybody, and we wanted all people to feel welcome. And I think it's a very idealistic thing, something that we should definitely move towards. Right? I want there to be inclusion. I want there to be, people to feel welcome. I don't want people to feel like they're being pandered to, and I think that's kind of what you're talking about here. But I would say let's go move back a second, and I don't have any of the metrics, and so, but I think it'll be a matter of looking at the metric and saying, are there a significant amount of female creators here, and what is the perception? And I think that this whole case began because there weren't, and a lot of women stayed away. Why are they staying away? Are there not creators, or do they not feel that they do not feel welcome? And so I think that was the initial push, right?
Yeah. I know when I got on the platform, I was so used to a social media aspect of, if you're a female, you either show off your body, you do selfies, your value is more on your outside and also the outside things that you have to show off. But I really quickly found out that on BitClout, it was about substance, not selfies. And that made me feel so empowered as just a human being. And also I felt really respected and valued as a creator on the platform. And it had nothing to do with my vagina or my body or my gender. And I love that. And what I understand about from Jordan Peterson and from a lot of other speakers and professors is that females and males at birth and being raised are raised completely differently. Males are more tended to be pushed to take risks, from like jump off of the toys at the playground and like do things, and they're not coddled as much or protected as much.
Don't be a wood.
Yeah, so they're more seasoned to have to taking risks, to hustling, to getting rejected, and having to fight for what they want in life. I also was raised in a way, I was raised in kind of that same aspect. I was never coddled. I was never treated like a pretty little girl. I wasn't even really, I was more pushed towards the masculine side. And my grandfather raised us. My grandmother had left when his kids, my mom and all them, were very young. So it's a very masculine, very like go-getter kind of lifestyle. So I don't relate so much to the females. And that coddling stage, I more relate to the males and the risk taking. And also as a gamer, I know that through every difficulty there is a win behind it. And I think I think from being on this platform and being sometimes grouped into the female aspect, being asked to be part of forums or platforms with all these other females, I'm seeing how much I don't relate to these women.
Right. So on that note, if I could jump in for a second.
Yeah, of course.
I don't mean to cut you off. If you look until very recently, and I'm watching this because I have a daughter, and you look at the technology that was oriented for girls until very recently, what was it? It was nothing. You know, you had Barbie this, and just typecasting, you know? And so into these little tiny pigeonholes for women, and it's like, oh, this is for girls. And if you look at what it actually was, it was stupid. You know, it's like, that's what they think the girls need, you know? Now, I mean, my daughter, she's 9, by the way, and she'll play on my phone, and she's into Roblox and Minecraft. So I'm seeing a push here of, you know, just games that in technology that everybody can enjoy, male and female, that really kind of, you know, hits at the right spot.
And closes the gap too.
Right. And I see that now, but until recently, it didn't exist. And it was a very male-oriented, you know, if you were a gamer, it was, you know, games for guys. A lot of girls like games too, you know?
Yeah.
So rather than, you know, pandering to them, like, oh, let's get a cutesy little Barbie game, you know? I really see that some people took that to heart and just said, you know, let's really create. Let's give them the tools to unleash their imagination.
That's exactly why I love BitClout so much, because it is almost like what you just said is available for your daughter. Now there's a platform that really does want its users to engage in projects together, and it has nothing to do with your age or your sex or where you're from, your color, anything. Right. It's about what you bring and what you can bring to the platform. Each of us has a different talent or value, and I really want it to stay that way. But one thing I do want to say, just as my belief system, is I do agree with Jordan Peterson when he says that because of the different ways that we were raised gender-wise and treated gender-wise, when women get into the workforce, the reason why they're paid less is because we're more agreeable. I do agree with that. We tend to accept what's given to us. We tend to not argue, or we tend to not be as pushy, or and we tend to be more nervous about asking for what we want because we haven't gone through rejection over and over and over again. We've been more coddled as far as opposed to our male gender counterparts.
I see some other problems, and if I can just expand on that. Women are kind of, in a lot of cases, I see them in sort of a no-win situation. If, you know, if they are assertive and lead, then they're like, oh, she's a cold-hearted bitch, you know. But if they try to be soft, oh, they're weak, you know, and they can't win.
No, yes, I do agree with that. That's such a tough one, to be honest, because I was thinking that today, that strong women are seen as bitches and
what was the word? And this is not in any way pandering. This is just something I have heard this, and I see this. What was the word? Their words describe people. I'm going blank here.
Problematic?
No. There's another word. There was something like that. It was along the lines of bully, you know, but I can't keep up. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Yeah, so with my thought process of that, also what I've noticed is a lot of people, not on BitClout, but from my life in general, a lot of the help that guys want to give is attached with strings, or it's seen as almost like a sugar daddy or like taken care of.
Okay.
And that's my fear in this, having creator funds or funds set up to help women, is it's just going to separate us further, and it's going to coddle this kind of, we need somebody to save us, when really we need to be, if anything, if there was anything to be offered, I would suggest coaching,
Okay.
privately coaching. But I was added to a group of all women for one of the funds, and I'm not going to say which one, but what it only took me like 2 times seeing like a million freaking notifications, jumping in and trying to just scroll through to see that it was a lot of blaming of other people, of other reasons of why each creator wasn't succeeding. I'm not active in those chat groups because I'm busy working and hustling and trying to produce and trying to make things happen, which is why I'm more successful than a lot of the women in that group.
Right.
And that's where you came into mind, because I don't have that victim mindset. And when I did for a split second, I allowed myself to hear somebody and absorb it, and like you said, look in the mirror instead of going, no, that's not, that only works because you are a guy or you whatever. I was like, oh shit, you're right. I am literally letting myself fail because I'm blaming everybody else instead of looking to see the opportunity, or looking to learn, or looking to get coached by some of these more successful NFT sellers.
Right. So I'm looking back, and I mean, we're talking in general when you talk about me and my kind of legacy, that I was not in a situation in which I could pull myself up with my bootstraps. Where I did have an unfair disadvantage, a lot of them, and I succeeded anyhow. But that doesn't negate the fact that the system was broken in the first place. And so I don't want people to look and say, oh, because he made it, anybody can make it. And so what if the system is broken? I'm coming back now to say that was fucking not fair, And, I'm not going to let it go that the system was broken in the first place. And so I want to ask that big question, that when we look at it, is there a system that is tilted against people? And
Yeah.
it's very complicated, because you have to go out there and give it your all and not let anything stop you regardless. But I'm going to call out a broken system when I see it.
I agree. I do think that the system, as far as gender equality, is still broken. Mm-hmm. But I truly believe that the first way to solve it is within, and us as females all agreeing that we're going to, like, you're either going to let people coddle you and blame other people and let them give you stuff and not work hard for it.
Right.
Or you're going to stand up and say, and like work together and go, how can we fix the system so that we each are being seen as individuals and not segregating ourselves?
And I think that a lot of the issues that we're experiencing right now with race, I live in South Carolina, by the way, I'm seeing it firsthand, is that, the Black community is saying, we're not getting the resources we need, we're not getting, and we never have. And other people saying, there's no problem. And then it gets louder and louder, and there's no problem, there never was a problem, and I'm so not racist, I'm going to show you how racist I am. And then it gets ugly. So we're in a space here where it's, we have to acknowledge there are certain things, and we're going through some growing pains, if I have to describe it as politically correct as I possibly can.
Well, it's really easy to look at the past and say what went wrong, what went right, and it's really easy to look at the future and not really, but or where we could go right, where we could go wrong. But in the moment, we as humans are flawed, and
right.
We could take steps forward, just like these groups were created to take steps forward to support and help. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the thought process really went into how they're actually going to hurt everybody in the end. So it is growing pains, and it is trial and error, and just having that open platform of discussion and the ability to hear each other out, which I have. I've reached out to each of these private groups. I've spoken with each of them, and they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see that side. And the response I got wasn't defensiveness. It was, what can I do to help?
Right. I think that
That right there is the first step.
I absolutely agree. I think that the whole building of these groups, the idea of it was done in good faith.
Yes, 100%.
But I also can see where there are some of these issues like you were describing, the coddling and all of that. But again, I think we should go back and say, is there a problem? Are there not? Are women receiving the resources they need? Is there a disparity? And that's a good discussion we have to have. I don't know how to measure that. I don't have the metrics, but I think that we should start there.
Yeah, I think that the first solution is for the women as a whole on the platform to accept the responsibility that we can take, because only then, like, as you clean, okay, it's like almost like you share a bedroom with a sibling. And you're like, oh, there's a big mess. There's a mess. Everything's a freaking mess. Whose fault is it? Well, it's your fault. Well, it's your fault. If you can't see whose mess is bigger and what needs to be cleaned up until one person at least cleans up their own mess. And that's what I would like to see happen, where the females take the responsibility and say, okay, have you joined all the Discords and all the clubhouses and all the different platforms so that you can learn about all these things and you can put yourself out there and speak up and talk? Have you done this? Have you done that? Have you talked to people about coaching you on NFTs or on marketing yourself or whatnot? And then at that point, then you can say, where is the system broken? You know what I mean? Because I've done the best I can from what I have provided to me and what I've actually outsourced.
Certainly. But I think that also take a look at the user count on here. What percentage are male? What percentage are female? If there's a very small percentage of female, then I think the first question to ask is why. Are women just disinterested in this? Or did they look at it? Did they come in and say, I don't understand? Did they come in and say, I would love to, but no matter what I do, nothing is happening. I need help. I'd like to have those conversations first and just kind of see where we're at. What is happening?
Yeah. In this, I also, what almost makes me more sad is that, and this is going to sound really politically incorrect, so I'm going to try to word this appropriately, but I don't feel sorry, but I have concern for every person in the pile. I always do. So usually my biggest concern is for the underdog or the person who is getting absolutely nothing but never asked for anything.
Right.
And where I'm seeing that is there's funds for everybody, but there's no support for like that average Joe dude that isn't rich, isn't a different color, isn't in a country that is in need of things, but is literally just working his ass off, never gets support, never gets highlighted, never anything. There's never a special group for those guys. So to me, we're not being inclusive by funding only females or like, I don't want to see a female get funded who has a mediocre value, puts in mediocre work, but gets handed things because she's female, when there might be a web developer who happens to be a white guy from suburbia who's never had anything handed to him, never been able to ask for anything because he doesn't fall into a group, but is so well deserving because he's put in time and effort and money and sweat. And so that's where I see the problem.
Sure, that these high value designers or high value creators are being completely overlooked in a case of affirmative action, pretty much.
Yeah.
And I can see where that's a problem. You're not the only person who feels this way, by the way. That's certainly something that I've heard a lot in general. Again, I wanted to apply for that job, but I didn't stand a chance because the person with the lower GPA who came from a different race got the job, and I'm angry.
Yeah.
A lot.
And it is a problem with this, and that is a problem with the system as well, because nobody is really equal
Right.
in any level. There's always it's just all over the frickin' place.
Mhm.
And I think that that actually helps the conspiracy agendas and stuff like that, as far as keeping us separated.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I do have the Unitarian mindset, and I do have the goal in mind of one human family and everyone being supported and treated equally. And that's from every aspect.
Right. So I think for me personally, it's more of more the thing that I need to do is listen, right, and hear people. Do people feel included? And is this a systemic problem, or is it a problem of them just not, walking into a party and standing in the corner?
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you ever see those people? I'm going back to the incels. They go to the party and oh, no girls looked at me. Fuck all women. It's like,
Yeah.
talk to anybody? Yeah.
Exactly. Or that example you gave of the girl that was homeless and complaining about all the things she's been through, but she refused to go step out of her comfort zone and go talk to people
Right.
and just practice those skills.
Right. Right. Exactly. Exactly. I mean, you get down to it, and it's just I don't want it. I don't want it. And
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that shoe fits for everybody, but I see it when it happens,
Yeah.
and that's I mean, I'm not going to pretend that that doesn't happen.
I think honestly, if there's any group on BitClout or in society that there should be a separate fund or support for, is the younger generation,
Mhm.
like the under 18 years old, because they're the ones that we're handing over the world to. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? As they grow up, and those are the people that need to be supported. To me, in my opinion, the most. I would much rather see creator funds out there for underage students and giving them the support and the coaching.
The
But
resources.
yeah, the resources. Yeah, and good solid experience from adults that are willing to completely be open-minded, that they don't know everything.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I've been thinking about that kind of in general terms, and you ever notice that every generation looks at the next generation and, oh, you kids, you have it so easy, and this and that. And it's a trap to fall into that sort of thinking. People are like, oh, you're so busy with your cell phones, you're not enjoying the world. And to recognize that the kids today have different challenges that we didn't have. I mean, certainly technology, there's a lot of advancements that made life a lot easier, so to speak. But it's brought new problems that we can't even comprehend.
I'm so proud of the younger generation. I think the problem with older generations, what I've seen in my past and history, and even on TV shows or depicted in the world in general, is that you see a lot, not a lot, but you see parents who get jealous of their children's successes instead of realizing that. And I talked about this on my last podcast recording, where we as parents should absolutely pray that we can produce something that is way better than us, because that's what evolution is. And
We want our kids to be better. I can't imagine being jealous. I hope my son is better than me in every way.
yeah, that means you did your job extremely well.
Funny story, real quick. I was here in LA last month, and we had dinner with Craig Clemens. And Craig hung out with my son, and they just hit it off. I didn't get a word in edgewise with Craig. He was so busy talking to my son about video games or whatever, and they just hit it off, right? So Craig gives my son his cell phone number, which he doesn't do for anybody. And they'll text back and forth all the time, and I'll try and text Craig. I don't hear from him. My son will text Craig, he'll answer right back, you know? And it's like, I couldn't be happier. That is awesome. That is awesome. My son has one of the greatest marketers in the world in his pocket, in a cell phone. You can just call him, hey, ask him a question. And that's just, I could not be prouder. I want.
And yeah, and not only that, but having someone as big and successful, and someone to look up to as Craig, seeing value in your child is such, like, Yeah, and it does say a lot about you as a father.
Oh, it's the ultimate compliment to me. I
Uh,
mean, Evan is his own person, right? And part of being a parent, and he's just turned 13, and he's going off in the directions that he's going. And I don't always understand, but I'm trying to, and I'm giving him the space that he needs to be the person that he wants to be, and give him the resources, whatever resources that he needs to be able to achieve that. And so I couldn't be prouder. Could not be prouder.
Absolutely. And do you see a difference as far as, because you have a boy and a girl, do you see
Yeah.
differences as far as what we were talking about earlier with the coddling and stuff? I know that technology and things have changed to allow young girls to be an equal part in that sense of technology, but do you see the differences?
That's a really good question. There are differences, but that's a really good question. I don't really see any coddling. I see my daughters just discovering and really charging out after what she likes. And she learned how to YouTube when she was 4. You know, I mean, before she could spell, she was able to find videos for the things that she wanted to see. And this is not uncommon. You know,
Yeah.
I hear this from other parents that their kids are doing the same thing, male and female. And so, I mean, it's really hard to describe, but it's sort of a genderless sort of thing going on, that I'm seeing. So, no, I'm not seeing the coddling.
I have to agree with you. I don't have any children myself that I'm raising. Some of the listeners know, but my only child passed away when she was 9, and that was 2011 that happened. So I've been childless, and all I have to go off of are friends on Facebook. But what I'm seeing from female children and male children with all my friends is that they're all able to experience life however they want, whether boys want to wear nail polish or play football, or girls want to wear nail polish or play football. I'm really seeing my friends in general treating their children and giving them this open forum or this open platform to really discover themselves. I think because we never really had a chance to have that
Right.
ourselves.
So I am seeing that in a lot of the technology, like the example that I gave with YouTube. The other one, right now, she's into is VR, and she discovers what she loves, and she just goes for it, and she just I mean, what she loves animals, or different things, and she loves Minecraft. She loves Roblox. There's a lot of the technology that I see for both men and women. And what's great about Roblox is she gets to design her character, and you know, this is her vision, and she'll have a character. It's a girl with butterfly wings, and whatever she wears, whatever outfits, and whatever hair and glasses, sunglasses, or what have you. She designs this in the way that she wants to design it, and so it looks to me like everybody does have that sense of equity within this world, and I hope that what I am seeing is correct.
I do too. I can't tell if it's because of the audience and the people that I hang out with are just, in my opinion, very open-minded and forward positive. And I just really have grouped my people down to a certain bubble that I'm not aware of this other side of life where people don't give their children that ability. But I really hope that as far as society goes, we've turned that corner.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that. When I talk about personal responsibility, and I'm very serious about this, I think one of those big things is parenting. That it's on us, and I'm seeing the effects both ways of engaged parents. And I think that there was this old style that is, you know, kind of really come under scrutiny lately, the more authoritarian style. And what ends up happening are, the children who deal with physical abuse and emotional abuse, they end up as bullies. And I see that happen at my son's school, my daughter's school. Um, and these kids are acting out, and it is always because of the problems at home. And there's a cycle. And a lot of times they aren't taught the emotional intelligence and they don't reach that level of self awareness. And
Or
so,
validation.
right. So it's not a matter of coddling. It's a matter of recognizing a child's needs, and you don't go and say, "Oh, they're being a pussy." It's this child's needs are not being met, and then you have to watch out for red flags. You know, is this child? How's this child's social relationships? Are they the kid in the corner of the schoolyard? And you need to watch these things. And if they don't have friends, or if they start acting out and getting in trouble, if they start acting out towards others, if they are bullies or they get bullied, these are red flags. Why is this happening?
Yeah, I think Jordan
So,
Peterson actually talked about it too, as far as raising an agreeable child, not agreeable in the sense of allowing people to take advantage of them, but he said specifically you want to have a child that is around adults that adults can actually stand to be around, and and your child be around other children where the children want to be friends with them.
right,
And apparently you have, from what he says and what he's observed, is that there's only a certain period of time that you have as a parent to have instilled that in your child in order for them to be agreeable children, which then grow up to be agreeable adults, or productive adults, people that people want to be around, that have
right,
friends and are productive in life, and not the incel mentality.
right.
I was, yeah, I was raised in a way, and it's of no fault to my mom. My mom and my family did their best with me, but I was raised to be a disagreeable child. Between the invalidation, between my mom having to work and go to school all the time, and me raising myself, and just everything, I think in general, gave me not the foundation to be that child. And I was the kid that was at the sidelines. I had no idea how to make true friends. I was raised in a way to need to survive and not thrive. I needed to just first survive, and in order to do that, you had to be manipulative,
Yes,
and you had to be selfish,
yes,
and it caused me problems my entire life, to the point where I was in behavioral disorder class. I fought everything that was pushed towards me, and I think it was the death of my daughter that brought me to a point where I started changing and looking at myself and just seeing what I wanted in life. I could never get by being coddled or being handed those things, because I felt sorry for myself and other people felt sorry for me. Like, I could only get so far, but I didn't want that. I wanted like way past that.
yeah,
And in order to do that, I really did have to look in the mirror, like you talked about, and self-evaluate and change my own behaviors and shadow work, and put in a lot of work in order to become the person I am today, which is, I'm still trying. I'm still.
when you look at that from the outside, when you look at that a person finds a way to reach self awareness, that is amazing. That's amazing that you're able to do that, and yet that's what we all have to do. I was thinking that you see kids, and you see these screaming brats in the restaurant or the supermarket, and say, "Oh, little asshole kids." They're in distress. They are acting out because they are in distress, and there's a problem at home. They're not just lazy little shitheads. They become these shitheads because that is their form of communication that there's a problem.
Yeah.
So,
And then you also have, God, you also have the autism. I think the increase in autism and things like that. And we don't have any, I don't think we have scientific proof of if that's from preservatives or whatever environmental things that have happened, but we've seen an increase in children that have these sociological issues, I guess you'd say, but now we have a society that is more aware and accepting of it, and are able to facilitate safer environments for
right.
these children.
It's not just an attitude problem. It is a physical problem. And
Yeah.
so, being able to reach that, to understand that, it's like it's not that they're choosing this. You um,
This
that is biologically what they are.
Yeah, this is a tough one 'cause I feel like the more we're getting involved in the conversation of all this, it's not as black and white and easy to be like, this is their fault, this is our fault kind of
Right.
thing. There's like so many aspects that you have to like the mental, the environmental, the biological.
Sure. I mean, when you look at it, it's so easy to say, oh, here's a person who just doesn't want to behave, you know. And certainly there are some of those people. Oh, there are people who feel that the rules don't apply to them, so they're just not going to. And we certainly see that a lot. I don't think that shoe always fits. Sometimes if you see somebody who might be on the spectrum, I mean, you have to take that into account. It's not like, you know, it's not like we choose this.
Well, what I can tell you from my experience is, okay, so I've been on TikTok lately.
Mhm.
And I'm seeing a lot of videos where the boyfriend will secretly record their girlfriend freaking the fuck out, screaming, hitting, like acting like psycho, like straight tantrum. And it's almost like when I watch it, it makes me want to throw up. Like, first of all, the adult looks like a child having a tantrum in the store. And then I also see myself in that. Like, I have been that unhealthy and that toxic, that with ex-boyfriends, I would get to that point where had you recorded me and I had to watch it later, I would be disgusted with myself and be like, what the fuck is wrong with this child lady? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I want to, like, bringing it back to not coddling girls.
Mhm.
I have to say from my experience, it is a lot of the coddling and it is allowed a lot of the accepting of that behavior as a younger child and teaching that child that when she tantrums and cries or acts out that she gets what she wants and it's accepted behavior and it's actually kind of cute. You know what I mean? But it's not cute.
Not cute at all.
No.
But
And
that's a behavioral thing, right? And again, you're doing
yeah.
it with the parents.
Yeah.
It really does. At the end of the day, it goes back to the
But
parents.
at the same time, once you turn 18, it's no longer the parents' fault anymore, in my opinion. It is now on.
What? The parents did you no favor by not giving you the tools that you need to survive in this environment. But it's on you to develop the awareness and to do what you need to do to get those things that you've never had.
Yeah, if your parents give you a crappy car that you drive all the way until you're 18 and then they throw you out on your own, and now you've got this crappy car and you've got a job that you have to drive to, you can't consistently blame your parents for giving you a crappy car. You have to take the car to the shop and figure out what's wrong with it and get it sorted
Right.
and fix
They
it.
owe you nothing. They owe you nothing. It is true.
And society owes you nothing either, just because you feel that this stuff is broken. And that's where I kind of tie it back to this group that I was thrown into, just because I have a vagina, where I supposedly should relate with these women when I've
Right.
never related to women ever.
Right.
And that's what I'm seeing is that they're all driving these broken cars, but they're unwilling to see what they could fix within that car themselves. They just want to continuously blame the society who gave them that car.
Right. So, I mean, again, looking back, you know, what percentage of males and females are on BitCloud? And if there is such a small amount of females compared to males, then the question is why? Is it a lack of interest? And if it is a lack of interest and we want more people to be interested, how do you bring more people around and say, hey, check this out. We want this to be inclusive. We want more females. Or it might just be a thing where, more of a guy thing than a girl thing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think in society, in its own, and it is catching up. It is completely catching up. It was more males that were given the computers to learn coding and the crypto world and stuff like that. But I do see like a lot of really great female developers and female crypto girls. I think there's even a Playboy model that we have on the platform that is absolutely obsessed with NFTs. And then you've got Julia, who is an amazing Miami DJ and creator who is absolutely in love with the crypto NFT world, and all of her music and developments are combining these things. And she's a gorgeous woman.
Mhm.
And so there are females on the platform. I think honestly, even with a small percentage of females on the platform, I never saw an issue. I never saw an issue until we were starting to be segregated into this need. And I honestly think that it's the females. This is my opinion, but from my observations, it's the females' fault that we're being segregated in the first place, because this was the first platform where there was no need to segregate us. I did come in as a valuable person for the first time ever. I didn't feel like my gender or my boobs or anything mattered. It was me who mattered. And it's making me very angry that these victim-minded females are on the platform complaining that they're not getting recognition or they're not getting this or that because they're female, when to me it has nothing to do with them being female. Like, there was maybe a little bit of a split just because it's the residual kind of like male female kind of like, we don't know what we're allowed to do. Plus you've got like the poor scared males that are like, I don't know if I should even, like, because if I do talk to this girl, I'm going to be seen as a perv. If I don't talk to this girl, I'm seen as this, or you know what I mean? So it's a lot of residuals, but it is, I believe, the female's fault, and a few of them who have now segregated us and now made it so that, first of all, I don't want any support from any female creator funds. I don't want it, because now I've devalued myself by allowing someone to coddle me just because I have a vagina.
Right.
But then you've got the more serious, amazing investors out there who are like, oh, she doesn't need support because she's a female and there's funds just for vaginas now, so I should support other people. And I'm like, whoa, didn't ask for any of this shit. All I've done is just sign on, and one day I'm segregated into a group. And it's like, everybody back the F off. Like, if there are females who feel like it's the platform's fault for them not succeeding, they need to go and look in the mirror and fix those things.
Well, what I will say, and I'm not too familiar with the female creator fund or some of the problems that are going on, but the one I did hear about was sexual harassment. And I do want to address that real quick, because there are people coming forward saying these things are happening. And I don't remember whether it was a BitCloud or another platform that I'm on, but I saw somebody come up and mention that there was, somebody was sending unsolicited dick pics to them. And
Okay.
that's not okay. Do you remember that?
Right. I know that there was a girl, what was her name? She's more of she posts more pornographic style stuff, and she had investors that were telling her that they would invest in her, but they needed to like pretty much run her and like treated her badly.
You know what? I just remembered that was not BitCloud itself. It was a Facebook group. So I don't know if that's happening on BitCloud, but I remember this happening, and there was a huge brouhaha about it. And like, oh, are we not allowed to say the word penis anymore? So, you know what? Can we just agree that it is that it is not okay to send unsolicited dick pics and leave it at that?
Yeah, and that honestly, to me, I don't think it's a sexual thing whatsoever. Just like rape isn't a sexual thing, it's a power thing, because I think everybody understands that no dick pic sent unsolicited ever got one of those responses of, yes, let me do something with that now. It's really the ability to have control and power over somebody. And that is a small percentage of people that have that freaking issue, which is a terrible issue.
But I'm saying that when they come out and say this problem exists, this is happening, but it's just,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when we talk about issues, if somebody is going to express that, we should listen and, investigate. Did this happen? Is this a person that is? But then when you get into the whole rape issue, then people are afraid to come forward, because then they're going to be saying, "Oh, it didn't even happen."
Yeah.
What about that woman who accused this guy of rape and that actually never happened?
Yeah. And the problem with that too is that I've been a victim of that, is people who are victims of rape, like me, are a certain type of person who tend to have it happen over and over and over again their entire lives.
Right.
And at that point, it's like, oh, you always say that. And then it becomes even more non-believable, or you're a drug addict, or you're this part, or whatever. But,
and I think it was strongly hinted that I acted inappropriately once, and I didn't, and there was proof of it. We were having a party in college, and this girl, one of my female friends, with her boyfriend, came over, and she got completely obliterated, and her boyfriend was an abusive asshole. And I was living in a fraternity house, by the way, and so we basically kicked him out because he, did not belong in his house. And she was too drunk to get home, and all of us were too drunk to do that. And so I had her spend the night on our couch, which seemed to me to be the right thing to do. So years later, she's like, I can't believe that you forced me to stay in a fraternity house with a bunch of guys. And, the story sort of builds to a place of, uh-oh. And it was quickly determined that I acted.
yeah.
But you can see somebody trying to accuse somebody of something that didn't happen.
Yes, I see that actually a lot. I brought this up on a different podcast where Gracie, my friend, I was bartending, and Gracie came in with another one of her best friends, and they were both drunk, and then they walked past this group of locals, to include this one guy who is the most annoying guy ever. He's an older man. He's super obnoxious, but I've been around him a lot, and I've never seen him sexually assault anybody. What I do know is he's a very friendly, boisterous, grabby kind of person. So as they walked by, he was celebrating something, and he naturally grabbed my friend and tried to dance with her as she walked by, kind of thing. It was not in a sexual way whatsoever. But because the one girl hates men completely, not Gracie, but the one girl, she was like, Ayla, you need to get this guy the fuck out of here. He just tried to he's a sexual predator. He just tried to sexually assault my friend. He was humping on her and everything. And I was like, whoa, I'm sober. I looked at Gracie and I was like, Gracie, I have your effing back. No matter what you tell me, I will believe you, and I will have your back. If that man sexually assaulted you, I will have him kick the fuck out of here, and he will never be here again. But I need to understand, did he actually sexually assault you? Or was he just an aggravating old man that tried to dance with you, but it wasn't a sexual thing? Right. Because there is a huge difference, and girls are tending lately to quickly jump on the sexual predator, sexual perv aspect,
right?
Not realizing that what that does to a man mentally for the long term, and in society in itself, once you're deemed a sexual predator. And she somehow, you could see it in her fucking eyes, where it went from drunk girl to like, she was hyper focused on me. She heard me, and then she responded appropriately. And I was like, done. And I went to him and I was like, listen, you stay the fuck over there. Don't touch my friend again. Like, stop being an asshole. But I didn't call him a sexual predator. I was just like, he was an asshole. He was a drunk asshole. Like, he shouldn't grab anybody. But the truth is, and I asked her later, I think even on the podcast, I was like, Gracie, if he was hot, would you have cared? And she was like, honestly, no. She's like, I would have danced with him and whatnot. It was literally that he was this old man, and was just, it annoyed me. And I hear that, and no one should be grabbed and whatever against their will, but it should be in our thoughts as females. It is our responsibility to always take a moment and really look at the situation for what it is, instead of jumping to something that could be so damning and damaging to a male.
And also, it's your responsibility to remind me that I'm too old to go to the
I think I am technically too. Are we the same age? I think we are, right?
I don't know. Probably.
I'm 41.
No, we're not.
We're not?
I'm not going to say I'm technically old enough to be your daddy, but no, not even close. But I'm a little.
There's no way that you're close. How old are you?
49.
Okay, you're literally old enough to be my older brother.
Why not? I just had my birthday the other day.
I saw that. I wished you a happy birthday. I'm glad. I do want to end this soon because we're getting up to the hour point. But to
Right.
go back to the whole point of what I was trying to get around was I do want to make the point that I do understand as a female, sometimes it is harder in society to get ahead in this world. There are still some things and problems in society that we do need to fix, but I truly believe in my heart of any place on earth right now, BitCloud is the one place where I have felt the safest and I have felt supported by damn near 99% of the people, regardless of my sex. And even in the in-person clout cons that I've gone to in Miami, as well as New York City, there was never anything that revolved around sex that I was a part of. Even in the hanging out period, like the official party, and then even in the after parties, I never saw anything inappropriate. And I really want to commend the gentlemen on the platform for being as wonderful and open and supportive as they have been to me and the people that I've been directly involved with. It means the world to me, and I've never had that in my life because I have always been sexualized.
So you felt welcome and included in this community.
I have never felt more welcome or included and more valued for what I bring to the table. But I've also been challenged, which I love, like by Clay Oglesby, who himself, like nobody, I do like not being coddled. You know, when I did post that about feeling like, I'm like, well, I see all these guys selling NFTs for this huge money, and I like, is it a problem with the girls? And I'm glad I brought that up, but at the same time, I'm slightly embarrassed now. But it did open up the ability for Clay to comment and say, listen, if you need any help with like helping you, coaching you with marketing, it wasn't giving you marketing. It wasn't, I'll do this because you're female and not getting the attention. He literally treated me like he would another, a man.
That's wonderful, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
From my observation, and for whatever my observation is worth, I'm seeing a lot of that. I'm seeing a lot of goodwill. That is the most inclusive community I have ever seen. But it's not my opinion that matters. What I see, that's what I see as well. I want to see what everybody else feels, and if the women on the platform feel this way, and if some of the people from other races who, in the real world, have not had opportunities, if they have opportunities here, and if they feel welcome. And I think that's the key test. I'm very open to hear that. I'm hoping so. I am hoping.
Yeah.
I'm hoping this is the case.
I do too, but I think honestly, we need to, as a community, and I have talked to privately with the Female Creator Fund groups, the different ones, and like I said, I expressed my opinion to them about how it's harmful. Even with goodwill, it is going to eventually harm us and separate us and segregate us, because we do need to get back to what I experienced at first, which was just a lot of people that were very confused, but very talented and very valuable, all trying to figure out their place in this spot, and there be no sexuality or gender attached to it. And
Right.
so I think the only way that we can get back to that point is to have more Clay Oglesbys who aren't going to coddle or help facilitate this ongoing thought of, it's because I'm female that I'm not getting attention. No, it's probably because you're in private discussions complaining about the reasons why you're not getting highlighted or sold, instead of being in the clubhouses or discords or different groups that are trying to see ways of growth. And that's what we need to go back towards.
Absolutely. At the end of the day, it really is dependent on the community to use Clay Oglesby as a model, saying that's the person I want to be like.
Yeah.
And so, absolutely. And I personally, I believe that if that person exists and truly will include everybody, regardless of race or gender, then that's the way forward.
So to move on to you so that we can close up this episode, I do want to highlight the fact that even with all the craziness that your life is, and all your new endeavors and investments, and then your daughter coming down with COVID. You are working on a book, and what I love is that our discussions here, I hope, facilitate thoughts for your book. But I wanted to give you a moment to talk about the book you're working on.
Thank you so much. Um, I'm going through structuring right now, and at first I started writing as a narrative, and I swore I was not going to do a memoir. And it, like 80 pages later, I'm looking, I'm writing a memoir, and it's like, well, is this the direction I need to go? So I had a really, really great conversation with a guy named Nicholas Cole, who's on the platform as well, but he's considered the greatest writer on Medium, most read writer on Quora, um, and he offers classes, and the guy's phenomenal. And he was suggesting to break this up into chapters, and instead of taking it from narrative form, attach stories to lessons. And what we're doing here, or what I'm doing here, is trying to determine what would be most useful to the audience. Because I'm not the star of the show here; the audience is, and that's uh, sort of where I'm at right now. But I'm going to be discussing a lot of what you and I were talking about, or what brought you into my life in the first place, and that is that means of how to get from zero to somewhere. And we've had these discussions a lot in the past of people who don't know how to start their lives, or how to turn their lives around when they've reached that end. We've talked about incels and the whole incel community. These are people who absolutely feel that they failed when it comes to attracting women, and so then they realize that, or they've come to the conclusion that they just cannot because they're unattractive. Women don't like them because they're unattractive, and that's the way it is. And it can't be further from the truth. The truth is they have to learn how to create attraction, and if they could, their lives would turn around drastically. But they're so locked into this belief system that they don't want to. They refuse to see it, and they fight it. And so my book is about reaching out to those people who, you know, look and they see their lives that that's just the way it is. I will never become anything because that's just the way it is, and really challenge those thoughts. Where did you come up with this idea? How did this happen? Let's really go through and audit that, and look at where your life could go if. And I think the big word is if.
I want to talk to you, or let you know and the audience know about a book I just actually listened to on audiobook. And maybe you can give it a listen. It's by Chris Hadfield, An Astronaut's Guide to Life on Earth.
Really?
What going to space taught me about ingenuity, determination, and being prepared for anything. And what I love about his book is I like analogies and stories because those give me examples and also like a way for my brain to put a picture on stuff and not get bored of just listening to someone tell me how to live. But I think, I don't know if Nicholas Cole, is that who you spoke of? If he agrees with this type of writing, but this entire book is a memoir, but it's considered a life lesson book. And if you read the reviews on it and the thoughts on it, they're like, oh, I just love Chris Hadfield. But when I read it, it actually is one of those books I think every person should read because it teaches you this, and this about life. And I think what I love about listening to you, more so than your lesson articles, is your story.
Really?
Yeah, because it allows me to put in perspective and relate a lot and put almost like a movie in my mind of how things went, how things could have gone, but then how things did go. And
okay.
Yeah, no, I just really enjoy when you tell the stories because it really, I focus on that. My brain doesn't waver off.
So, in your opinion, do you think that I'd be better off publishing the story or publishing the lessons?
I think both, because But I think I don't know if it's possible or what the experts would say, but your stories into the lesson, you know
Well,
what I mean?
let me put it to you this way. I'm getting conflicting advice, right? On one hand, I'm getting don't, make this usable to the audience, make this easily accessible. And certainly there's merit in that. I was listening to a podcast with Neil Strauss the other day, and he said everybody wants to tell their story, and I say tell your story, because the person who is a tailor could tell a more compelling story than the hostage negotiator who goes behind enemy lines. And it's all in how you tell the story. And so I'm wondering, which way should I go? And I'm still working on this.
I if I if I were going through Amazon and I was going to pick out another book, I would want another book that like more like The Astronaut's Guide, where it's his memoir, but it taught me like through his own life. A lot of people said he wasn't relatable because he is an astronaut and not everyone would be put in those perspectives. But I think they're very closed-minded and they didn't actually allow themselves to see that there's analogies here. But
Yeah.
when you talk to me and if you could write the way you speak, which is telling the story and then giving the lessons from that story in very relatable ways of just the way you do, just the way you naturally do, that's what I would like the most from you. And
so we're talking about a hybrid then of both the narrative and the lesson attached to it. And that's where I'm trying to go. I really like I know how to tell the story, and I know how to build drama. And the crazy part of it is it's all true. And so what I've been doing is I'll set something up that happened years ago, and it goes dormant. And then out of nowhere it blows up, right? Over and over and over again. It's like, and so I set that up in the story in, the one thing that I've always wanted to happen that's never going to happen. And 20 years later, it just happens out of nowhere. And I set it up to tell, and then I do it in other ways, and I'll set up a character with a flaw, and then a flaw ends up, biting them in the ass, being their undoing. Like
maybe doing a hybrid and then sending that out to trusted people to read, and then having them come back and say whether or not they want more of the story and less of the lesson, or more of the lesson and less of the story, and you can kind of tailor it from there. But at least it's a good, because I'm guessing that all books go through a process of a shit ton of edits before it gets to and rewrites until it gets to the final thing. But at least you have a memoir with, you know what I mean? Because I do foresee you going far in life and people being interested in that aspect regardless. And then you can easily change, lower it, make it smaller, and add in as big of the lesson as need be.
Well, I'd like to ask two things of you real quick, if you don't mind. Number one, if we could talk offline and I could actually share with you some of the stuff that I've done and actually get your opinion on it. And number two, I would love to be on the show again, and maybe we could talk about some of the subjects that we want to discuss, and perhaps our discussion would help develop some of that.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. Even if you don't do your own podcast, having you on as often as possible, I think you are invaluable, at least to this podcast and to the audience members.
Well, I truly enjoy being here, and I really enjoy having you. I'm very thankful for you having me on here. And if I've offered anything of use to the audience, thank you.
Well, you've changed my life in the short time that I've known you because of your stories and because of the lessons that you have. And I know it's hard to believe because you really only think of certain, like the people that are unattainable or famous or whatever, and their lessons that you always keep in the back of your mind that always come up sometime during the day. Mm-hmm. And you're just you sitting there, and you, and like, at least I'm I don't know what the word is right now off the top of my head, but for me, if someone were telling me this, I wouldn't think as much of it as I would if you were telling me that like Steven Seagal was saying these things or somebody big.
Sure,
Steven Seagal. Why would I choose him of all people? Like, he's not who I was trying to say. Okay, like, scratch that. Why?
A podcast and you cannot edit it out.
Oh my God. That's so embarrassing because I don't even, no offense, Steven Seagal, but like, no. But yeah, no, the lessons and the stories that you talk about, because they are stories, they stick in my mind and they are predominant in my mind often, like a lot. So you have changed my attitude, and it's not just the Clay Oglesbys, it's the not collaboration, but it's everybody, it's you, it's him, it's people just in the way that they act without even talking to me, that all is reforming and filling in these gaps that my mom and my parents never gave me as a child to make me an agreeable, productive adult in my life. And it is one of the reasons why I didn't want to skip yoga today, is because it is easy for me to blame, like, oh, I had to work, I had a podcast today. But because of people like you and consistently talking and being involved and being around people like you and you individually, it's pushed me to not be in that mindset.
Well, I'm very grateful. It really means a lot to me, and truly, because I imposter syndrome hard sometimes, and so hearing that from you really, really means a lot to me. You have 5 minutes, by the way.
I know.
I'm keeping track. I'm watching.
All right. Well, at this point, I will go ahead and end the show. I will put links and where to find you. But your medium is.
Good question. It's MikeGoldberg.medium.com.
There you go. And you can also find Mike Goldberg on Twitter at.
It's Mike Goldberg.
It's Mike Goldberg.
ITS. I had to restart my Twitter because Twitter sucks. Just the algorithm.
Yeah.
Nothing dramatic happened. I'm sorry to report. But it's a very new Twitter, so I would love to follow you. I promise. I would love for you to follow. Promise I'll give good shit.
Yeah. And then, of course, on BitCloud at Mike Goldberg.
Yep.
Okay. Well, until next time, we will say goodbye.
Take care. Thank you so much for having me.